thank you so much for being curious about music, about new music, even about crazy people who mix opera and black metal. Thank you to everybody who watches and reads what Retumba is publishing, because I think you guys make an amazing job. Like, man, that's so informative what you bring. There is always something to discover, and I really appreciate that. Personally, I always think, I mean, we talked about that. I'm a fan of music too. I always appreciate people who can show me new things in music. And I think that your channel is amazing for that. There is always something to discover. And I think all the people who are checking on this channel, they are people who want to discover, they want to exchange. And man, guys, you are amazing, all of you. And because without people like this, why would we, like, when there are not people like you guys, why are we existing as musicians? You know, the music is one side, but the listeners are at least as much important as the music and the musicians. We all belong together, you know. And thank you guys for your support and for your interest, and keep on rocking. And you too, Alfonso, for your job. It's amazing what you are doing.
Thank you. We try to be the link between you guys, the artist, and the audience. Hello, Andromeda. Welcome back. How are you?
Hello, Alfonso. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. Having a coffee, enjoying my
nice.
My Monday so far. How was your Monday?
My Monday was packed with administrational work and not much singing, unfortunately, but well, that's also part of everything, so I have to go through that too. So a lot of coffee drinking too, and a lot of computer things, and yeah.
Well, so I know that you started the press interview campaign for this release. So thank you for making a space for me. I know that we discussed about the Suspendida a few weeks ago, and I tell you how much I was waiting for the chance to discuss Folterkammer. And well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, how bad I am pronouncing the band name, Folterkammer?
Perfectly. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, for the sake of offering my point of view of the band, I want to start by asking you about Imperial Triumphant. I know that we discussed about how you meet the guys, but I want to ask you about your first impression of the band when you discovered their songs for the first time.
Imperial Triumphant?
Yes.
I think I was shocked in the best way possible. Like, it was, I mean, I've been listening to experimental, free improvised, really freaky music always. I always loved it. My heart goes up for that. So I was not shocked in the meaning of, you know, I think I can imagine that people who are not used to experimental music, it's a shock to hear something like this, you know. But my shock was to hear the intensity of playing in combination with the experimental approach in it, but also in combination with that, black metal or black and death metal thing. That combination was something I didn't expect, and I think it was also interesting to see how when the members changed, also the music changed, you know. So in the beginning it was another drummer and another bass player, and everybody left his own touch to the music. And then all of a sudden it was this constellation, Kenny, Steve and Zach, and they just added that on top of that amazingly crazy music, which I think is awesome. They added that jazz element even more, which I very much love. And I was like, and I felt like now they arrived where they can start the journey, you know, like what I really love about the band is when I can see how they grow and how they change, you know. when you can really see a development. For me, that's interesting. I don't want a band. Yeah, exactly. I don't want a band to always play the same, what they did in the beginning. It's more interesting because we are all growing, and so is a band. And to see where they took this, from the early times to what they are doing now, that's a true journey. And we were all a part of this who were listening to this band. And so I was shocked that this actually works so well and is a language on its own. It's a world on its own. And I always love bands and artists or composers who are able to create their own world. And Imperial Triumphant, in my opinion, they did that. And they incorporated New York, the whole vibe of New York, into that music. That's really special. I really love it.
Exactly. I know that your first participation with the band was at the time of By Luxury. So
yes.
you discovered the band, but by that time or earlier?
No, earlier. And that's why I was in touch with Zach. Because of this, I knew his band, and we had lots of people that we know in common, like Kenny and so forth and so forth. And it was when I came to New York that we actually really met in person, and then we started to work together. Yeah.
Yes, because Folterkammer is like also an agglomeration of friendship with you, Zach, and also Laurent of Kilter, Laurent.
Yes.
So I think upon discovering Folterkammer years ago with your debut album, I was intrigued by the premise of you being the vocalist and also being counteract with black metal. But for me, the main surprise was seeing or listening Zach doing a twist. For every fan of Imperial Triumphant expects, just crazy things about his way of playing or composing. And the fact that Zach, the founder of Imperial, goes traditional in the sense of playing black metal.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yes.
Folterkammer was like unexpected twist, and I will leave it there for the moment, because I think when you're doing crazy things, for example, let's say you become the fourth member of Imperial Triumphant, no? You can crazy on top of crazy. So what else is new? The possibilities are endless. But if you put orthodox black metal with your way of singing and expressing yourself artistically, it becomes like more radical, And I think that's a good a nice way of being introduced to Folterkammer. Black metal in the rooted in this origin. It was very restricted in how should be played or portrayed. Then you have the classical elements and also the operatic way of singing, which come back from an era of well-behaved society on the surface. The mannerism and the all was good. So I think the nature of Folterkammer is to disrupt the norm as a whole, even by today's standards. And I think, first of all, you guys nailed it with doing.
Thank you so much.
With going, going traditional in a sense of playing black metal.
Yes. What you pointed out is to break with the norm, right? And for me, that's very important, because to me, art, there is an entertaining aspect to everything, of course, but there's also an artistic component to it, to discover, to innovate things, to see how you can change things and do them in an unorthodox way. To me, true art is always revolution. It's always connected with rebellion and also with opposition, and that is like black metal when the one that we call, for example, we associate with the Nordic black metal from the 80s and the 90s. It was a rebellion against the strict Christian influenced a very conservative society or structure, lifestyles. And imagine to be a teenager in that time, to create music like black metal, it was something raw and rebellious and provocating, to sing about Satanism. It was a shock for a Christian society to hear that, your goal was to make your mom and your dad be embarrassed of you, or something like this. It was a rebellion. And that's how it was born, and to me, it's not about being conservative about this, but to use that energy and the beauty of that kind of expression and aesthetics, but to push it into nowadays time. Because I'm not a teenager who lives in a country where I'm not limited by a religion of how I want to express myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are other things. I'm a woman. So as a woman, you have some things that you have to really fight for, But the topics are different. The music has now it has changed. We have new technical things, but we also have new styles that have been developed in the meantime. So how can we use that beauty or like that special kind of beauty that is, to me, black metal? How can we translate that into nowadays time? I think it should be a chance to open something up, not to close something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even with black metal, I think black metal should not be reduced to just to a very conservative, narrow box. Black metal, if you like that kind of black metal, go for it and appreciate it, because there are many great bands who do that. But there is also space for other interpretations and stylistics within black metal to open it a bit more up. And I think that's very interesting. And as a musician, you don't always want to do the same thing. You want to grow as a musician too, and also as a band. So I think it's interesting to figure out how you can always make this happen, new things, how to be creative, to find to create new problems and find new solutions for them.
Yeah.
Something like this.
You said it better. I think what it makes this interesting, even beyond the idea or your proposal of artistic proposal, is the fact that you use this narrowed way of playing black metal, back to its roots, and defy that notion by making them, just another thing. And for me, Folterkammer embodies a very unique entity that can take me back to older times, where appearance and modesty prevailed, and bring it back to the present and give it a spin of, being an all rebellious entity. And I think that your second record, so the first album, let's say, it laid the foundation of the sound of the band. We were introduced to your capabilities as an artistic personality. And I think this second album is more confident of the things that you can do as a band. And you now having a fifth member, Laurent. And overall, I think it's a great record, honestly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But I think it's true, because the first one was really an experiment. Yeah. And the second one, we already saw what we liked on the first one and how we wanted to play with it even more. But we already had like a certain direction, In the beginning, everything was possible. It still is, but now we saw what we actually really enjoyed, and we want to make that grow. So that's the new album, is the consequence of that process.
And I think to fully or to properly be discussed, this album, it should be discussed piece by piece, frame after frame, because it happens. There's a lot happening here, but let's discuss the main topics of the concept of the album. Weibermacht, Beach Power, Weibermacht. Thank you.
Yes, it's a tricky word.
Feminine power or rich power, as you describe the album title or translated. it is about dominatrix, BDSM, and it is. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I would. The dominatrix is like a subtopic of the overall Weibermacht. So let me explain that really quick to you. The terminology Weibermacht is a real terminology for a topic in arts and literature, which traces back to a very old time, which always portrays dominant women and submissive men. So this, even in ancient Greece mythology, you already had these stories. I'm sure even further back. And even in medieval times, you had these stories of very intelligent or very handsome, strong men all of a sudden are completely submissive to a woman because she's a woman and she's strong and self-confident and she's cunning, she's cheeky, she's naughty, and the dominatrix is one of these archetypes that qualify for this concept of Weibermacht. You can find a lot of sculptures, a lot of paintings, and even stories that are told with that motive of Weibermacht. And that's the motive that goes through all the songs. Even each song is very different and talks about another aspect, but the overall topic is always this artistic concept of Weibermacht, how we know it from arts history,
So let me tell you, the first time I listened to this record, I was waiting in line for my turn in a bank. I had plenty of time, and I was trying to keep my composure while listening to this record because it's a full-on surprise, song after song. What you describe here is, takes me to the third song on the album about Aristoteles. And the thing is, I first listened to this record without not knowing anything about the topics and the lyrics. Then on my second time, I sit with the lyrics in front of me, listening to the album. The translation, of course, to fully understand, and it's quite the experience. And I think I fully relate to the topics on the songs. I have my favorites because of the music and the way you intonate your voice.
Yes.
But I think it is my impression that this record, beyond the topics, is about providing a safe space to openly discuss these subjects that are often, that criticize or happen behind closed doors, I mean, after all, we all have our kinks and engage in pleasure activities, right?
Yes.
So I know that you research and read a lot about the dominatrix and BDSM phenomenon, as you described in the press release. I want to ask you, what are the things that struck you the most in your researches and that you perhaps weren't aware of or haven't imagined?
You mean like things that surprised me, like I mean, I was lucky. I was growing up with parents who talked with us children about everything, So to shock me, it takes a lot. and to me, what there are so many, I know there are so many fetishes and there are so many different people. So I think if you live long enough, you see everything. And what shocked me were not so much the topics or the fetishes or something like this, not at all. What took me by surprise is actually what I was just talking about, how far back we already had those stories, all these kings, but they were lived in a different way, with different meanings, because society changed, things changed, how we dress and everything, but there are like archetypes or patterns that are always used again and again, but adapted to the time we are living in. But the stories that were written, or it was an oral tradition too, you know, just spoken word or songs, that goes back so far. And it was already like, sometimes we think BDSM is a modern phenomenon. No, it's not. It's really not. But it's also something that is very progressive and interesting for society. And it in the modern times, it was linked to avant-garde arts a lot too. Okay. And I thought that was very interesting, because I didn't really notice, because I didn't know how to read the symbols or how to discover them. When you study something, all of a sudden you know how to read, you know, in between the lines, or you know the symbols. Exactly. And that was something I was really surprised by. Like, my God, there were so many kinky things in movies or things I was reading, and I was not even aware of them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Oh, okay, now it makes sense. Like, so it was more like this. It was more that kind of aspect of where I was not seeing what was so obvious. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. It was right in front of me, but I didn't see it. Actually, that's what I meant by the question. The things that you weren't in front of you, but you weren't aware of previous to your research. I think that this record is about embracing that attitude and that part of ourselves, both you as a woman and us in our role. As you mentioned, we can also read in between the lines of the lyrics or these topics. And I think, of course, it's mainly about pleasure and perversion. But for what I can understand also is about stress relief, you know, and therefore it could even be therapeutic in a way, you know, these fun activities. Of course, it's about fun, but it can also be healthy. In that regard, or in a similar manner, I have a question for you. For example, compared to the discussion of drugs legalization, in which, you know, you can be educated as to how to responsibly engage in these habits that are present in our society since a very long age or old age, and we can't get rid of these things, the drugs, you know, in our societies. In a similar manner, as you mentioned, BDSM activities were present long ago. So will there be a benefit if these often taboo subjects were brought into the limelight of public attention, or obtain a more mainstream understanding of acceptance in our societies? You know, you mean like the kinky lifestyles? Yeah, the fun, the kinky lifestyles, which even now are like things in the underworld, you know, so, or things that perhaps are seen as something shameful. I think that BDSM has gained a bit more limelight during the last years, actually. I think so, because of movies or books which became like popular, you know. But that was not something that was interesting to me. I was, you know, that kind of, I mean, I knew it existed, but for me it was always other aspects that were more interesting, the ones that are, as you said, more hidden or more like a true lifestyle, not in a popular way, you know, like not with the cliches. And I think in general art should talk about everything, and it should connect the dots, and it should build a bridge instead of a wall. And if it helps people to, I mean, I always think it's sad when somebody, I mean, I love privacy, you know, that's a sacred space. It's something beautiful to not always share everything, but everybody should be, should feel safe to say, I'm kinky, or I'm gay, or I do this, or I am that, or without being scared. You know what I mean? And to see that people react with respect towards that, just for the sake of it. There is a living soul, a living being, and every life deserves respect. And no matter what is our background, no matter what we are doing, just from one human to another human, I think there should be a respect of the life that we are all, because more or less we all feel the same emotions, you know? Yeah. But, and topics like this, I hope, I mean, I think if it makes people enjoy themselves, it's great. You know, if maybe, yeah. But also if it helps somebody to not feel alone with these topics or with coming out as a kinky person, that would be even, for me, that would be really awesome. You know, if somebody feels like, yeah, I feel welcome, or I'm part of this, or I feel heard, or oh, what they sing about, it's exactly how I feel, or it's something I know too. If it gives you a feeling of integration and of being a part of something, for me, that's something that maybe could happen with a bit more limelight, you know, to feel not so much alone in the world, but to see there are other people, and they even talk openly about things, and they share things, and they share the beauty of it, and also the all the meta levels of expression that can be in a lifestyle like this. You know, it's not just talking about BDSM or femdom in specific. It's not just about the sexual things we see displayed everywhere. There is also a thinking behind that, an approach of how you live your life, how you live your sexuality, and there should not be a taboo about that. That's not right, in my opinion. I think it should be, we should see how much it can impact a society for the good. Like, for example, what I think is really great is there is this, I don't know if everybody does that who is kinky, but there is this, you always have like a contract between the dominant person and the submissive person, where you talk about your fetishes, about what you love, but also about your limits, what you don't like. Today, we all have these discussions of no is no, only yes is yes, you know, and I think that's very important. But with something like what they do within that framework of a kinky relationship, or like BDSM practices, to discuss this openly, it takes a lot of trust.
Right.
And it takes a lot of consideration and attention and delicacy, and a good dominatrix or a good dom, he knows how to really work with that, you know, to respect this and to play with limits, not to force themselves onto it, you know. I think BDSM is a lot about trust, and to me that trust is something very cautious, something very precious, and something very delicate. And I think we all can learn from that. Imagine if everybody who has an intimate relationship in either or the other way, it doesn't matter, if we all would openly talk about what we love, what we don't like, what works for us, and where are our hard limits, I think so many things would change.
Definitely.
So that's something really great. And that's something, for example, that was really surprising me, that this exists. And I was like, man, we should be about this with everything, not just about kinky things or about sex. We should be like this when we have a relationship, when we have a friendship, just to see, are we on the same page?
Yeah,
do you think
exactly.
we can play? Can we live together? Can we play together? Yes or no? And for me, that has something very progressive. There is something we can learn from everybody and from everything. And I think from BDSM, and also specifically from femdom, that's something I think could be valuable for the whole society.
Yeah, I agree with that. The possibilities of that happening, for example, here in Mexico, it's we are far away from that. I know that you are from a part of the world which can be more accepted, more accepting of that behavior. Here in Mexico is a very different discussion with those topics. And this record was very and highly informative for me in songs like the one for Aristoteles, the third song, and also
you
about...
know the image of Phyllis and Aristoteles. It's a very famous painting, you know? And the story is an old folklore story that people have been telling each other in Germany, northeast of France, Switzerland, that whole era there. They were like telling that story, you know. So that's really tracing back to an old time and people were entertaining themselves with these stories, and that image of a very smart intellectual man who works within the frameworks of that, and then comes this woman and she takes revenge, and knowing even no matter how smart he is, she can do everything with him just because he's attracted to her. I think it's a great story, and I'm sure it was entertaining and great back then and funny, and it's still now. So I wanted to take a modern approach to this story.
It was for me very fun and entertaining, honestly. And as I was translating the lyrics, that part of Aristoteles, no matter how smart you are, obey your dominatrix. And this record is, again, as what happens to La Suspendida, it has a nice balance between the message and being fun, having fun with it. And I can guess there are parts of these songs that I think are very fun, and it has a nice balance between your voice as a commanding with a commanding tone, but also like understanding or being soft or feminine. I don't know how to approach this, this comparison in your lyrics, but I think that was fun because you at some point of the song play your role as with fandom or dominatrix, but then on the next line you are like more calm presence with your voice. And this happens often over the record, and I have my favorite songs. Overall, or so far, with your conversations with other people, what would you guess are my favorite songs on this record? Let's say 2.
Whoa, that's a hard one. Wow. I mean, I don't know what you are listening to in general. I know that you like Imperial. I know that you like La Suspendida, which is already really unique when somebody listens to these bands, which are musically in a very specific style. And I can, but at the same time, you also tell me that you like Die Unterwerfung with Aristoteles and Phyllis. And so, wow, that's a tough one. Hard to say, because I don't know if you prefer the ones which are a bit more, I would say, like, for example, Algolania. It's one that is very, it unites many different styles. You know, so if you are into La Suspendida or if you are into Imperial, I would say that could be something that could interest you, because I play with different sounds, with the voices, with different styles. I quote the opera. I quote 2 different operas. I do many like in the lyrics, and I play with the lyrics. I change to them, but it's a more experimental tune, like in comparison, for example, to Leck mich, which is more like, you know. So it's hard for me, because I can imagine you are like me, you like many things, you know. So it's really hard for me to figure out. Maybe you also like Venus in Fur, which is the only cover song on the album. Because it's a very New York one. It has that New York sound, and also it's the only one in English. No, it's I really don't know. That's really a hard question to answer.
Well, I'm sorry. To tell you the truth, you nailed it with Algolagnia. And it was because I was fully immersed in the experience of the album. By the 3rd song, the one about Aristoteles, I was having a lot of surprises, but when that song enters with the bass lines, it was totally unexpected, and it's a nice twist, you know. But then, as you explained, your voice, your singing here has a lot of range, perhaps the most one of these songs. And 3rd favorite will be La Maupie. Well, about the song about Julie Duverny.
Julie Duverny? La Maupin.
La Maupin. Sorry, I can't pronounce his name.
You know that story? You know her story?
It's
a true story.
Actually, after listening and learning about this person, I watched some videos of her. It's an interesting character.
Yeah, that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
She was, I mean, she was really rebellious. And I want to, as I said to you, I always want to portray very strong women in all kinds of ways, not just beautiful ones or smart ones or whatever, you know what I mean? But everything possible. And Julie d'Aubigny, I think she was really courageous. She was also, I guess, a bit crazy. but she lived for what she believed in, you know. She was but that was an incredible person, and she was actually a popular opera singer. So to see that story, it had to be part of Weibermacht. We had to give her a song, you know, for her. That's that, and it's very different from a song like Algolania. Stylistically, it's a very different style of music. But and we wrote La Maupin in France, in fact. Yeah, that was funny. And Algolania we wrote in New York in the rehearsal space. Like, this was like, we sometimes, you know, somebody comes with something and the other works on it, but this one was happening all at the same place. And every song has that's why I guess every song has a different mood, you know. It's not really, it's every song on this album is completely is a little world on its own. And La Maupin, the story to read, I hope when I see a painting, or when I read a book, or when I listen to a record that you know, either shocks or just shocks me, or, you know, whatever, or makes me intrigued, then I also do my research, and as you do, like, I want to know what are they talking about? What is that? Where is that coming from? And then, like, when you read a good newspaper article, it can never cover the whole thing, but if it's well done, and if the topic is interesting, you start to do your own research, right? Because you want to know what is that. I would be happy if people would listen to the album and they would want to know who was La Maupin, or what's that story of Aristoteles and Phyllis? What's the context? Or what does Algolania mean? Like, something like this.
I researched that also. I say, okay, this is in German. This is another word.
Yeah, it's not a German word. I think it's is it a Greek word? I think so. It means to have pleasure in pain.
Yeah. Either inflicting or suffering pain.
Yes, exactly. But it's like I always compare it to spicy food. Like, you know,
okay.
Some people they don't like spices, chilies and stuff, not at all, because it hurts them, and they feel they don't taste the other flavors anymore, or it's like, it's just not their thing. And for other people, like, I'm one of these other people who love to eat very spicy. It doesn't hurt me like that much, or I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't lose the taste of the other things in the food, you know. But everybody is different. We have different sensations with seeing, hearing, feeling, and of course also when it comes to pain. For some, if somebody takes a whip and whips your back, it can be a horrible experience and very painful, and then somebody else enjoys it, you know. So, and Algolania talks about when you enjoy these things, you know, like pain as a sensation.
I don't know if it was a coincidence that the three songs that struck me the most without context are the one that I think are, for example, the story about Aristoteles and Julie, or La Maupin. I think I pronounced that wrong. But I think these songs, when you take the time to read the lyrics and see the context of the album, are the ones that, okay, this is not only on the surface level, you know, topic discussion. It goes, it paints a more clear picture of what these things are, you know. You choose a character like Aristoteles, which is highly regarded as figure of smart men. And you have this historic character, French character woman, which also defies the habits of society, back then. And I think the more you pay attention to this record, you mentioned that you expect that people take time to understand. And for me, these two songs are very important to understand the nature of the things that you want to express in this album. But, well,
no, I think you are right, because they give a face. You know what I mean? Exactly. It gives a picture to the topic. A song like Algolania or Anno Domina is more abstract. Like the topic, the way how we write about the topics, it's more abstract. But when you have something like Herrin der Schwerter, or you have something like Die Unterwerfung, where it talks about historical or mythological figures that we all know in either or the other way, it connects you with an image, and yes, you're right. Like the cover of the album, the artwork, that woman that sits on the man that is used like a witch on a broom, but it's a man and she sits on his face.
Actually, actually, I thought it was a broom, but after paying attention, it was okay. It's a man, and now it makes more sense. It's a nice twist and a nice way to encompass the nature of this album.
And there is also this kind of that she's in the sky and with these women floating around her. We have those images like with religious topics, those old paintings and all of a sudden you have that image which is completely the opposite of how it was normally painted in regards of the topics. And she wears that pink dress, within the framework of black metal. I think that's really a lot. It expresses everything that is Folterkammer. In fact, he did that really well.
There are a lot of allegories expressed in the album artwork, and I think Eliran Cantor was the right choice for artists. Did you express these things to him, or he just fully did it on his own?
Well, Zach talked to him, if I remember correctly, and he told him about what I was writing in the lyrics and what we are, the direction we want to take, the concept of Weibermacht, which is an art historical concept or historic, it's a concept we already know in art and literature, and that he should take his own, twist to that story. And I remember how we were discussing with him, like in the beginning, she looked up, the woman on the man. But when a woman looks up, it's submissive, And I told him, no, she has to look down on everybody. She's superior. She's not looking up like begging or praying. No, she looks down, she's. And so we talked about these symbolics with him, just to know we are on the same direction of expression. And the rest, it was all him, like the genius he is. And also to have the oil painting in the context of operatic black metal, it really fits. All the contrasts that we try to write about in the music, it's also reflected in the artwork.
And I think the cover song, the last song, it also is very telling of fully encompass the concept of the album. I didn't knew it was a cover. I didn't know about the topic and the reference of that song originally. When I heard it for the first time, it was a nice surprise. It was a nice twist musically and in the intensity of the song. I celebrated Logan for Olagan for his input in that song, and I thought it was like his idea or his way.
What do you mean? I didn't hear it really.
The last song, Venus in Force. It has a more present bass lines, bass work, And I thought,
yes. No, now I know. Now I understood. Okay, yes.
yeah. And I thought it was a way to display him as a now part of the band, you know,
Yeah,
because when you use black metal and this sort of sound, it's very difficult to bring bass to the front of the songs.
exactly.
There are parts at the beginning and some other songs that I hear the bass work and it's very refined
Yeah.
and very different to what you
Yes.
expect. How did you create that balance?
Well, first and foremost, as you can see, I have a tattoo here on my finger. The bass is the electric bass guitar is actually my favorite instrument. Don't tell that to my voice. But it's like I love low frequencies, and honestly, I would love to be a bass baritone or bass singer. I love low voices. I love low sounds, and for us, for Zach and for me, it was like we need bass in Folterkammer. And in black metal, as you said, normally you don't even notice if there is a bass or not, and it's always like dum 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 dum, and it just follows, you know, the root notes of the chords of the guitar, so you don't really hear that. But Laurent is a caliber on bass. He's extremely versatile and skilled, so it would be a shame to just let him do this. And I think if you want to be provocative within black metal, you have to break with the aesthetics, right? As you talked about in the beginning. So what can you do? You change the topics, you change the harmonics, you change the stylistic influences that you, or you just, you know, and not or, but and you push the bass more to the front and you let him actually play something, you know, like, it's a full part of the sound. But of course it doesn't work with all the tunes, but for me, as you also have it, when there is more bass in the song, the more I like it. So that's why I personally, Algolania is a lot of fun for me to sing. Also from the lyrics, it's one of those lyrics I like the most of those that I've written. And I love that the instruments are so balanced, you know, they are not in a traditional way anymore. And Venus in Fur is similar, because the tune which we covered also has already another approach, you know, to than in black metal logically. So it's more, I would say it's more easy to adapt to that, you know. And yes, I think that's what is maybe breaking with the traditional thing, you know, to really emphasize the bass. And we want to surprise ourselves too. So for the next album, you know, like what happens in the future, who knows how we will develop. We will see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is something that I want to address. In those moments that you emphasize the bass, it made me think of Folterkammer breaking the boundaries of his frame, you know. And there are times on this record, even in the first one, when you hear the breaking the norm of the black metal, as you know, the orthodox way of black metal, but in the next second or the next moment, I listen to the music going back again, you know. It's like I think of Zach or the both guitarist being sitting, you know, calmly playing, and you bouncing and jumping around, like having fun, you know, around. And like, so this is the image in my head, you know, because the music is very serious, but you are the one responsible for taking it to another you know, level. And then are parts of the song, for example, I don't remember the name, but it's almost at the end of the record, in which the ending of the songs reminds me. You mentioned the influence of classical music, right? And there is an ending in which some harmony or some melody reminds me of something I sometime listened about classical music. So overall, I think this is a great record, and it showcases where the band could go in the future if you decide to break the rules that you first set for the Folterkammer.
No. As I said once in this interview, we want to surprise ourselves, but also we want to always have all the opportunities, and we will see in what direction it will take us, you know. But I think too that Weibermacht is a totally even though we learned something from the first experiment of the Lederpredigt, it's more refined now, but it's already a new chapter, you know. You cannot really compare those two albums. It's not really the same. And to me, that's actually exactly what I want. Is I don't want to know what will be in the future. I want to be surprised by ourselves, you know. And I can imagine that for people who are more into purist ways of interpreting certain styles, it's something that is maybe over the top for them. But I think that black metal should not just be that point in all the styles of music, but it should connect with all the other styles and to maybe, you know, grow somewhere else. And I think the Weibermacht is to me, even, I mean, I'm also listening to what I did before in music and to see how I developed, you know, in what direction. And I'm sometimes shocked and sometimes surprised. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because it's everything leads to one step leads to the other. But to me, it's also, it's great to see how as Folterkammer, we already did two very different things, you know. For me, that's interesting to see that we are growing, you know, that I'm happy about that personally. And to see that some things are more concrete on Weibermacht than they were on Lederpredigt. But also I really love that Lederpredigt is so raw. It's like there is something punk to it, you know, like something extremely raw, and I can embrace both things, you know. But Weibermacht is what I like about that album personally, is that it became even more the playground I love to play with on, you know. Yeah. I can write melodies that are really a lot of fun to sing because they are challenging, and I can sing lyrics I really love. I can express all the theatrical things I love, all the comedy, all the satire, everything in between the lines, you know. But you don't, I think that's that's always part of the language. When you listen to Weibermacht, you will hear many quotes. You will hear quotes of the lyrics of Elektra from Strauss. You will hear quotes of the operetta Die schöne Galatee. You will hear quotes from German 1950s or 1940s song, which was like, Schon der Professor Socrates. That was a great singer, and she sang this song, and I took this as a quote, but then turned it into Aristotle's story. So I always quote things from popular or historical or mythological things, and, you know, turn them around or make a little joke here or something there. If you don't know the language, you don't know that. If you don't know these songs, you also don't know that, even if you understand the language. So to me, it's a playground. Everything, nobody tells me there is a limit. You know what I mean? Folterkammer to me is everything I always wanted to do, like as a lyricist and also as a singer. I have the freedom to everything I've always wanted. And so Weibermacht, I cannot put everything on Weibermacht. I can also not put everything on the Lederpredigt. But Folterkammer actually gives many opportunities to maybe have a chance to express, you know, everything that I want to express. I don't know if I explain it well enough, but yeah.
You did, and let me just say, on the first conversation about La Suspendida, I mentioned to you that I think it was like your zone, the nature of that project for you to explore anything. And I was wrong. After listening to you here in this album, I think this is more about you, more than anything. You know, in La Suspendida, you have a context, you have a different juxtaposition, which makes it interesting. but here you are the commanding voice as a whole. You know, like the most distracting element or the most highlighting element in Folterkammer is your voice. And I'm not saying this to rest merit of the music in itself, because it's fascinating. But yeah, great record, honestly.
Thank you so much.
I have one last question for you, and it's again as with the La Suspendida, if you could, in your mind, what you have in your mind about this record, to compare to another form of work, movie, a painting, or a book, which one would it be and why?
Your tricky question. Oh my God, now I cannot bring up my tattoo anymore. I can bring up the other tattoo. Oh man, no, let me be a bit more creative here. Wow, a piece of work. Good question. You and your question. Man. That's a good one. Wow. I could bring up a very obvious one, actually, a very obvious one. And that is the story, which is Venus in Furs, because that's from an Austrian author, Venus in Pelz. That's the original title. And his name was Machos. And because of his name, Machos, we have the word masochism, because he was the first one who described that phenomenon of enjoying being a masochist, you know, enjoying being, how do you say, like embarrassed, or, you know, that you feel ashamed. Yeah, like there is a specific English word. Let me figure it out, because that's something. Niedrigen is the German one. No, but I missed. When you are humiliate. So that's it. Humiliation. When you enjoy humiliation. And when you enjoy serving, and when you enjoy pain. So that story, Venus in Pelz, it describes this from the perspective of Severin, you know, the protagonist, the male protagonist, who sees this woman, and she represents everything. You know, she's beautiful. She has that fur, and she's everything he fantasizes about, he dreams about, and that story that happens because she was not kinky in the beginning. He saw that in her. I saw that when I was, as I told you, I was training with a professional dominatrix in London to prepare for this album, and she's working in London. That's what I mean. And what took me by surprise, also, that's also one of your questions, was that it's always the submissive one who knows who is the dominant one. It's not the other way around. If you want to be dominant, you say, I'm dominant. It cannot work, you know. So maybe it can with some, but with others maybe not, because it's the submissive who recognizes the dominant one, not the other way around.
Oh, you know, interesting.
And yeah, that's what I think too. So she didn't know she has that, but he did, and he saw that in her, and he backed her. He, in the story, in this book, he begs her to treat him like this. And in the beginning, she's like, what? And what? Are you sure? And you really want this? And he really begs her and wants to be her slave, you know? And he wants to be humiliated by her. And she does. And she grows into that role of what we now, I think it's one definition of how to be a dominatrix. So I think, and that's why I also chose Venus in Fur as a cover song. It was because of this, because I know that Lou Reed, he was reading that book, and that's what was his inspiration. And to have this image, that extremely elegant, beautiful woman, and this extremely submissive, devoted man, I think that's a very interesting dynamic, because normally we always have men being in charge and the woman being submissive. But in this story, and that was the scandal of that time when Sacher-Masoch was releasing it. It was already a popular book, obviously, but it was a new twist to everything. And to have that story, that image, that's, I think, what comes the closest to what I understand under this concept of Weibermacht. So that's one side. And the other side, which I told to I think to my sisters once, it's, to me, the perfect dominatrix is a cat. You know, have you ever seen how a cat is treating you? It throws down the things, you know, it gives you an attitude. It wants to be, it always has an aura of elegance, but it has class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the perfect dominatrix, you know, or that extremely beautiful creature. And there are these weapons, you know, the claws and the hissing and the teeth, and the fur is so soft, and they have those beautiful paws. And the dominatrix, you know, many submissive people, they have a foot fetish, and the shoes and the feet, they are very important. And to be to a woman's foot, you know, to really go down to the ground and worship her feet. We sing about that on the album a lot. So I think that you need to understand these images, these symbolics, to fully understand the album, you know. Like that's something Venus in Furs incorporates that. But when you look at all these dominatrices, like the woman in this story, Venus in Pelz, you see that there is something cat-like about that, you know. So those are my references: cats and Venus in Pelz.
If I understand correctly, this song, I think this maybe perhaps that one, Das Peitschengedicht. Sorry for
Das Peitschengedicht.
Yeah.
That literally means the poem of the whip.
Well, and there's an expression I think you use here about clawing the nails. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. There is in fact, yeah, she scratches him.
Right.
And but it's like there is a poetic side of these lyrics, and a very root side of the lyrics. So the poetic one is, she has a submissive man, and his back is like the canvas for painting a picture. But instead of a brush, she uses the whip, and she signs it, you know. But at the same time, the lyrics, there are parts in the lyrics which sound like a very trashy German fandom porn movie. So also that contrast, like black metal, like opera, which is elegant, and black metal, which is rebellious and raw. And that's the same here. It's poetic, and it's also trashy. You know, it's opulent. It's like fantastic. And then there is trash, you know, like I love trash movies, for example. I love trashy horror movies, trashy action movies. I just love that. I don't know why, but it totally entertains me. And that contrast is really intriguing. And das Peitschengedicht is actually exactly about that contrast.
You embrace the absurdity of it all.
Yes, but also as I said, the contrast, the extremes, the opposites.
Of course. I think now that I hear you explaining these songs and the context, I think you thought about everything, and hence this record is what it is. A great record, to say the least.
Thank you very much.
Well, see you another time. Hopefully, Folterkammer come to Mexico, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah. I so much want to. Okay. Oof. So
have a good night.
You too. Bye, Afonso. Thank you so much.